Hello there and welcome back to some more Forza Top Gear laps. Today we are taking a look at some pickup trucks slash utes. We begin with the 1986 Lamborghini LM002, 444 horsepower, 369 foot-pound torque, 6,780 pounds of weight. The Rambo Lambo is back here on the Top Gear track. Once again, a rather interesting car. I'm sure many of you know the story at this point, but for those of you who don't know, the Lamborghini LM002 is essentially a vehicle Lamborghini built to trial for the military. It didn't pass, but Lamborghini decided they'd make a production model out of it anyway, and the way they did that is by sticking a V12 engine in it from the Countach, and as a result, it's a rather silly car. It's got a manual gearbox, it's got the V12 soundtrack, which just does not fit with this large vehicle. Statistically today, it's actually still pretty impressive. 444 horsepower. It's actually the second most powerful car here today, despite being by far and away the oldest car here today. As far as it goes to drive, it's actually pretty okay. It does have some issues in the low speed, as do quite a lot of vehicles here today, as you'd sort of expect, because we are dealing with a heavier caliber of vehicle, and a bigger caliber of vehicle, and obviously they do have issues manoeuvring, so you'd expect low speed issues. The LM002 does have that. Once you get up to speed, it's not too bad. I've had a few of these built up over the years for racing, and they're actually pretty darn good. So if you do want to try and build something a little bit unconventional, the LM002 might just be the car to go for. However, a car not to go for in the building states is the 2007 Toyota Hilux AT38, 169 horsepower, 265 foot-pound torque, 4,740 pounds of weight. This is the least powerful and the least torquey car here today. The Hilux AT38. Yeah, this one's interesting. So first off, Hilux is cool. I love the Hilux. The Hilux is great. It's basically the toughest truck in the entire world. I really like these. If I was going to buy a truck, I'd buy a Hilux. And the AT38, yeah, it is a little bit of a cock extension, as is quite a lot of the vehicles here today, with the big tyres and the cool boxes on the back and whatever, but it is actually built to do what it says on the tin. It is built to go to the Arctic. Of course, Top Gear proved that, because this is the car they did the polar exploration with. Anyways, as far as the Hilux goes to drive, it's hilarious, because as you'll probably see on a couple of camera angles, you might have caught it in the moment, this is a ridiculously tall car. It has ridiculously big tyres, 405s in fact. It hasn't got a lot of power. However, it has a bit of an unexpected thing. It likes to do that. You'll see more of that in a minute. Unfortunately, the Top Gear cameras, with the way they are, sort of through most of the corners where that happens, it goes into third-person mode, which is a bit of a shame. But you'll see through this last corner, something it likes to do through corners if you hold it on full lock. So wait for it, it does that. And yes, you can get this to roll stock. It's stupid. Do not drive this car. Also, it killed a cameraman. Yeah, don't drive that for any form of seriousness, but if you do want a bit of fun, the Hilux is certainly interesting. Next up, we have the 2014 Ford FPV Pursuit Ute, 422 horsepower, 402 foot-pound torque, 3,946 pounds of weight. This is the lightest vehicle here today by a decent amount. Of course, we are now going to get into the Ute section of this. I was originally just going to do this with the trucks, however, the Utes never really felt like they'd fit in anywhere else. I kind of wanted to drive them as well, so I figured I'd lump them into here. Kind of a similar premise, I guess. You've got an open rear end where you can stick stuff in. Anyways, as far as the FPV Pursuit Ute goes to drive, it's odd. It has understeer, which I was not expecting. From the Ute, you'd sort of expect them to be wildly tail happy, because there is no weight over the rear end. They're rear wheel drive, they've got a lot of power. However, no, the Pursuit Ute's just rather understeery. I don't know if it's a case of them tuning the handling so the rear end doesn't come out, and the way to do that is to go for excessive understeer maybe. But yeah, the Pursuit Ute does suffer with that quite a bit. It's not a bad driving car once you're used to that understeer, but it is a little bit weird at first to get used to, just because you really do not expect it to quite have the level of understeer that it has. Next up, we have the 2014 HSV Maloo Gen F GTS, 577 horsepower, 545 foot-pound torque, 4,034 pounds of weight. This is the most powerful vehicle here today by quite some margin. Yes, of course, the HSV Maloo is the next one up from the Ford FPV. It is its rival. Of course, both of these cars are now dead, unfortunately, because Australia has decided it doesn't want to make cars anymore. It wants to make Fosters. Anyways, I like the HSV Maloo. It's stupid. It's 577 horsepower. It's got no weight over the rear end. It's silly. However, as much as I like the idea of the car in premise, I do have to admit I was dreading driving this one a little bit because I was expecting the R-Sync to come out on this. However, the Pursuit Ute did fill me full of some confidence, and I will say, as far as the Maloo goes, I've got to be honest, this drives better than the saloon version of this car, which we have had previously, the Commodore GTS. The main reason for that is simple. It doesn't handle any worse than the saloon did, but because, or not that much worse, but because it hasn't got a wing on the back and a bunch of extra weight by being a saloon, it is actually quicker. So I prefer this to the saloon. You drive them back to back, tell me which one you prefer, but I really did quite like the Maloo in the end, which I wasn't expecting to say. Anyways, next up, the 2016 Nissen Titan Warrior Concept, 310 horsepower, 555 foot-pound torque, 7,388 pounds of weight. This is the torquiest vehicle here today, and the heaviest vehicle here today. It's the good old Nissen Titan. I love this thing. It has a giant diesel engine in it. I love diesels in racing games for some reason. We've had a fair few of them. We've had the Safari, the Hilux was diesel, the Land Cruiser we had a while ago was diesel. You know, the Audi Q7, the Touareg, stuff like that. They aren't particularly quick. They aren't particularly suited for racing games, considering the whole point of a diesel is sort of torque on demand, and in racing games you don't really need torque on demand because you can rev the cars up to redline. But I still love them, and I love the Titan. It's ridiculous. I really wish they'd make this thing. The Warrior, for those of you who don't know, is essentially supposed to be, I guess, like an alternative to the Raptor, and, you know, some of the special editions of the Ram. Unfortunately, they never really made it. They've only stuck to the standard Titan line, which is a little bit of a shame. As far as it goes to drive, I've literally got written here, big old bastard, because that's what it drives like. It drives like you'd expect a truck to drive. It's slow, the diesel engine rolls like a bugger. It's not bad though, it's decent enough. You know, it's not a handling god by any stretch of the imagination. It does understeer, it does roll a little bit through the corners. It drives like a truck, but it's... I think it's got so much character. I really do quite like it. Next up, we have the surprise of the day, the 2017 Chevrolet Colorado V6 ZR2, 308 horsepower, 275 foot-pound torque, 4,734 pounds of weight. Now, a little thing to be said about the Colorado. This is not a full-size truck. I believe in America this classes as a small pickup truck. I mean, over here it's still ginormous. But this is essentially Chevrolet's rival to the Ford Ranger, the Volkswagen Amarok, stuff like that. Interestingly enough, because of that, this is actually the lightest vehicle, or the lightest truck here today. If you discount the Utes, this is by far and away the lightest thing here today. And despite having a V6 engine, I will say the Colorado surprised me because it's a lot quicker than you'd expect. The straight line speed on this is actually pretty phenomenal. This thing can seriously haul. This thing can keep up with the LM002 and the Titan and stuff like that. It really is very, very quick in a straight line. Handling, it's alright. It doesn't actually, for all the lightness that it is, it doesn't actually handle all that much better than a traditional full-size truck would. But it's just the speed in this thing, you know, 308 horsepower and a V6 engine. You expect it to be a little bit wheezy, and of course compared to most normal vehicles it kind of is. But in the context of today, yeah, it's probably the quickest car here in a straight line, which is certainly saying something for the Colorado. Next up, we have another huge truck, the 2017 Dodge Ram 2500 Power Wagon, 410 horsepower, 429 foot-pound torque, 7,044 pounds of weight. Unfortunately, this version is not equipped with the diesel engine, which is a shame because I need more coal in my life. But yeah, the Ram, it looks ridiculous going around Top Gear. A lot of these cars do, but I think the Ram takes the cake, because the Ram's, it's almost quite narrow, and it's just ridiculously tall. It's hilarious. Yeah, the Power Wagon, I actually quite like the Power Wagon, I've got to be honest. It's ridiculous, but it says Power Wagon on the side, and it's called the Power Wagon, so I've got to like it. It's got a wagon in its name. I don't know why Dodge, it's not a wagon, but ignore that. As far as it goes to drive, well, it's pretty much as you'd expect. It's big, it's massive, it has issues at low speed, as you'd expect. One thing I forgot to note earlier on with these cars is, one thing I was finding is it's really hard to predict where the other side of the truck is. Usually I don't have this issue, but if you're driving on the left side of the truck, trying to figure out where the right side of the vehicle is a bit of an issue. I've hit plenty of tile walls in today's filming for this episode. Yeah, the Ram is massive, but it drives pretty much as you expect. It's not quick, it's not particularly well orientated to handling, but it has got a lot of character. And again, driving it around Top Gear, it's ridiculous. It's fantastic, truly is. And finally today, we have the 2017 Ford F-150 Raptor. Of course, this episode would not be complete without an F-150, 450 horsepower, 510 foot-pound torque, 5,525 pounds of weight. The Raptor looks incredibly tiny compared to the Ram, I'm just noticing that. But yes, the Ford F-150 Raptor, probably my favourite of all the trucks. I really like the Raptor range. I prefer the first-gen Raptors with the V8 in them. Not because they have a V8, just because I think they look cooler. This one, of course, is a second edition. This has almost the same engine from the Ford GT. It's a little bit changed up, obviously, but it is the same 3.5 litre V6 EcoBoost that you find in a Ford GT. And as we all know, a Ford GT is a very quick car. This isn't as quick, but it's still not bad. As far as it goes to drive, well, it was a bit of a tale of two different stories. It's not quick. I was expecting this to be quite fast, but no, I'd actually say the Colorado might be quicker than this in a straight line. That might be an interesting drag race to do at some point. However, this is by far and away the best handling truck here today. It's just, you know, it's a little bit smaller, it's a little bit more powerful, it can get itself out the corners, but it does handle by far and away the best here today. It's better than the Colorado. Well, obviously it's better than the Hilux. Out of all the trucks here today, this is the best handling thing I drove. Yeah, I quite like driving the Raptor. It's a cool truck, and yeah, awesome little thing to drive. Anyways, onto the times, and the HSV Maloo Gen F GTS was the fastest car today, going into 131st place with a 122.253, just beating out the HSV Commodore Gen F. I would say go for the Maloo over the Saloon. You don't sacrifice all that much in handling, and you do get a decent boost to your straight line speed. In 158th place, we find the Ford FPV Pursuit Ute with a 124.518, a pretty good time from the Pursuit Ute, especially considering it's understeer. We can't compare it to its saloon version because the saloon version's different, it has more power and so on and so forth. But yeah, a decent time from two of the Utes. The actual trucks, in 275th place, we find the Ford F-150 Raptor with a 131.988, goes in between an 850R and a Corsa. Sure. In 281st place, a surprise, the Chevrolet Colorado V6 ZR2 with a 132.686, goes in between the Alfa Romeo 8C Spider and a Jaguar E-Type. The Colorado, yeah, a ridiculously quick car in a straight line, as it turns out. Yeah, I was not expecting it to be quite that far up the leaderboard. In 308th place, we find the Lamborghini LM002 with a 136.736, goes in between a Mercedes-Benz 280 SL and a Ford Escort, which is interesting because they're sort of cars of that period. In 316th place, we find the Dodge Ram 2500 Power Wagon with a 138.913, just off of a Datsun 2000 Roadster, a fair way up on the car below it, the Volvo 1800e, a pretty decent time considering. In 321st place, we find that the Nissen Titan Warrior Concept with 141.335, goes in between a Fiat 124 Sport Spider and a Honda Civic. Those cars are not the same. And finally today, the Booking Hilux, 326th place for that car, a 143.036, a thousandth of a second up on a Jeep Grand Wagoneer, a Mini Cooper, and a Volkswagen Scirocco it beats as well. yeah, the Hilux is ridiculous. I think actually going on two wheels at the end might have actually helped the Hilux out a little bit, but the Hilux needed all the help it can get. Anyways, as far as conclusions go, the best all-round truck, obviously, it's the F-150 Raptor. It always is the truck to go for if you want a sports truck. My personal favourite of the vehicles here today, the Nissen Titan Warrior. I love the character of that thing, it's ridiculous. I quite like the Ram as well. The Colorado was the biggest surprise of today, as was the LM002. It managed to keep up with the newer trucks, which was interesting. The Maloo was a surprise because it's quicker than the Saloon. And the Hilux is ridiculous, although we already knew that, but it does need reinforcing. The Hilux is stupid. Don't drive it seriously, but if you want to have some fun, there's no better vehicle than the Hilux. Anyways, thank you all very much for watching this edition of Forza Top Gear Laps, and next time we are going to be taking a look at pony cars, the smaller muscle cars. We should see some surprises in there, because some of those cars have more power than the actual muscle cars. Anyways, yeah, until then, farewell.
Well, it's 40 below and I don't give a fuck. Got a heater in my truck and I'm off to the rodeo.